First contact's price. The observatory in Chile wasn't supposed to be active that night. Dr. Sarah Chen had officially logged out hours ago, but something in the data from the new quantum telescope kept nagging at her. The anomaly appeared 3 days ago, a distortion in space that defied every known law of physics. Now, as she stared at her screens, the distortion was growing. "Hey Miguel, are you seeing this?" She called to her research assistant, who was supposed to be doing routine maintenance. "Dios mío," Miguel whispered, eyes fixed on the main display. The distortion had evolved into a distinct shape, roughly cylindrical, approximately 40 kilometers long. It hung in space just beyond lunar orbit, shimmering like heat waves over hot asphalt. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard, capturing every measurement possible. The object's mass readings made no sense, it seemed to both exist and not exist simultaneously. Before she could run another analysis, every screen in the observatory went dark. Then they came back on, displaying a single message in perfect English. "We apologize for the intrusion. We didn't mean for you to see us yet." Sarah's phone buzzed. Then Miguel's. Then every device in the building. The same message appeared everywhere, in every language on Earth. "Your world is in danger. We need to talk." Within hours, the first images of the Aldari delegation were broadcast worldwide. They were tall, ethereal beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with their emotions. Their ambassador, who called herself Dawn Singer, addressed the United Nations Security Council with devastating clarity. "We have been watching your civilization for some time." Dawn Singer's translated voice was melodic but heavy with urgency. "We hope to make contact when you reached a higher level of technological advancement, but circumstances have forced our hand. The Nexarians are coming." The holographic display behind her showed a massive swarm of biomechanical ships, like a plague of locusts among the stars. "They consume worlds," she continued. "Not just resources or territory, they consume the very essence of civilizations. Their biotechnology absorbs and repurposes everything: people, culture, knowledge, even the planetary core itself. They've already taken 17 worlds in this sector alone." The Security Council chamber erupted in chaos. Questions flew from all directions, but one cut through the noise. "How long do we have?" asked the Chinese representative, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "8 of your Earth months," Dawn Singer replied. "We can evacuate as many of your people as possible to safe worlds within our Federation. We've done this before, helped younger species relocate before the Nexarians arrive." U.S. General Claire Martinez stood up, her combat ribbons catching the light. "And how many of those evacuated species survived with their culture intact?" Dawn Singer's skin shifted to a deep blue, what Sarah would later learn was an expression of sorrow. "None. Displacement is traumatic. Most fragment into smaller groups, lose their identity, or get absorbed into existing Federation cultures. Then evacuation isn't an option," Martinez declared. "We'll fight." Dawn Singer's skin flashed white with surprise. "You don't understand. The Nexarians have never been defeated. Their biotechnology adapts to any weapon used against it. Even our Federation, with thousands of years of advanced technology, can only slow them down." Sarah Chen, who had been invited as a scientific advisor, suddenly understood why the Aldari's first message appeared on her screens. They'd been monitoring Earth's quantum research. She stood up. "But that's just it, isn't it?" she said. "You've been fighting them with advanced technology. What if that's the problem? What if the answer isn't in having better weapons, but in having different ones?" General Martinez nodded slowly. "We're a species that went from first flight to landing on our moon in just 66 years. We've survived ice ages with sticks and stones. We've adapted to every environment on our planet. And we've never stopped fighting, ourselves, unfortunately, but also everything that threatened us." Dawn Singer's skin rippled with complex patterns. Your confidence is admirable, but dash. It's not confidence, Sarah interrupted. It's desperation. You're giving us a choice between cultural extinction through evacuation or physical extinction through combat. But humans, we have a habit of creating third options. Martinez turned to address the Security Council. We need to call an emergency session of the General Assembly. Every nation, every resource, every mind working on this. And she looked at Dawn Singer, we need everything you can tell us about these Nexarians. Their biology, their ships, their tactics. Everything. Dawn Singer was silent for a long moment. Her skin settled into a deep purple that none of the humans could interpret. In all our encounters with developing worlds, none has ever chosen to stay and fight. You truly are different. You have no idea, Martinez replied. Humanity's greatest advances have always come when our backs were against the wall. And they've never been more against the wall than right now. As the Security Council chamber buzzed with activity, Sarah found herself starting at the hologram of the Nexarian swarm. They looked like a perfect killing machine, evolved over centuries of conquest. But evolution had its limits, it could only build on what came before. Humans, on the other hand, could think sideways. Could combine the primitive with the advanced. Could imagine things that had never existed before. They had 8 months to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology, but in its refusal to accept impossible situations. 8 months to prepare a defense that even a biotechnological superorganism couldn't adapt to. The clock was ticking. The choice we make. 6 months before the projected Nexarian arrival, the Nevada desert bloomed with activity. Where there had once been empty salt flats, now stood a sprawling complex of laboratories, training facilities, and manufacturing plants. The world's governments called it the Unity Complex. Its workers called it the Last Stand. Dr. Sarah Chen stared through blast-resistant glass as robotic arms assembled what could be humanity's salvation or just another failed experiment. The device looked deceptively simple, a sphere about the size of a basketball, covered in what appeared to be primitive copper coils. Ready for Test 47, she announced into her headset. Behind her, General Martinez and Dawn Singer watched from the observation deck. The Aldari ambassador's skin had taken on the gray tone of skepticism. You're attempting to combine quantum field manipulation with primitive electromagnetic technology, Dawn Singer said. The theoretical models suggest . The theoretical models are based on advanced technology, Sarah interrupted. We're counting on that being our advantage. The Nexarians adapt to threats by analyzing and incorporating advanced systems. But what happens when they encounter something that's simultaneously primitive and cutting-edge? The test chamber hummed to life. The sphere began to spin, its copper coils glowing with an inner light. Energy readings spiked on the monitors. Field generation stable, one of the technicians reported. Quantum signature is unusual but holding. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Send in the test sample. A robotic arm lowered a piece of Nexarian biotechnology, a fragment from a scout ship the Aldari had captured years ago. As the sample entered the sphere's field, it began to writhe, its self-repairing mechanisms activating. As you see, Dawn Singer started, their technology is already beginning to . The sample suddenly stopped moving. Its surface, which had been trying to reconfigure itself, froze in mid-transformation. Then, slowly, it began to crumble. Holy shit, Martinez whispered. It worked. Sarah nodded. The quantum field disrupts their advanced molecular manipulation, while the electromagnetic pulse affects their more basic biological functions. They can't adapt because there's nothing advanced enough to adapt to, it's like trying to hack a stone wheel. Across the world, similar breakthroughs were happening. In Bangalore, engineers had developed swarms of simple mechanical drones that could overwhelm Nexarian defenses through sheer numbers and unpredictability. In Brazil, biologists had created viruses that targeted the specific genetic markers the Aldari had identified in Nexarian biology. And in Japan, AI specialists had designed combat systems that randomly switched between advanced quantum computing and basic binary code, making them impossible for the Nexarians to predict or counter. But it wasn't just the scientific advances that were transforming Earth. The approaching threat had done something unprecedented. It had united humanity. Ancient enemies now worked together, sharing resources and knowledge. The Israeli quantum computing team collaborated seamlessly with their Iranian counterparts. North and South Korea had opened their borders, combining their industrial might. "There's something else you should see," Martinez said, leading Sarah and Dawn Singer to another section of the complex. They entered a massive hangar where hundreds of people were training with what looked like primitive weapons, spears, bows, even swords, but made with advanced materials. "Meet the Ghost Brigades," Martinez explained. Special forces trained to fight without any powered weapons or modern technology. Because sometimes the best way to defeat an advanced enemy is to be impossible to detect. Dawn Singer's skin shifted through several colors rapidly, the Aldari equivalent of shocked disbelief. "You're combining space-age materials with Bronze-Age tactics?" "Exactly," Martinez smiled. "The Nexarians expect resistance from an industrial civilization. We're going to give them that, and then hit them with everything from sticks and stones to quantum physics. No pattern, no predictability, nothing to adapt to." Sarah watched the training sessions with growing hope. A woman wielding a carbon fiber spear was sparring with someone carrying what looked like an ancient shield but was actually made of metamaterials that could deflect energy weapons. Nearby, others practiced with compound bows that fired arrows tipped with the same quantum disruption technology they'd just tested. "We're not just preparing to survive," Sarah realized. "We're rebuilding our entire civilization to be a weapon they can't counter." Dawn Singer moved closer to the training area, her skin now showing patterns that Sarah had never seen before. "In all our years of fighting the Nexarians, we never considered, we always tried to stay ahead of them technologically. But you're doing something entirely different." "We're doing what humans have always done," Martinez replied. "Adapting, improvising, finding ways to survive that no one else would think of. The Nexarians evolved by building on what works. We evolved by trying things that shouldn't work at all." An alarm sounded throughout the complex, not an emergency signal, but a reminder. Sarah checked her tablet. "The orbital defense platforms are ready for testing. We should head to control." As they walked, Dawn Singer spoke quietly. "You understand that even with all this preparation, your chances are still minimal?" Sarah finished. "Yes. But humanity's greatest achievements have always come when someone told us our chances were minimal. The first time we tried to fly, to split the atom, to reach the moon, everyone said it was impossible. And yet here we are," Martinez added. 2 months ahead of schedule, with defensive systems no one has ever tried before, and backup plans for our backup plans. When the Nexarians arrive, they're not going to find easy prey. They're going to find an entire planet that has transformed itself into the galaxy's biggest booby trap. From the control room window, they could see the sun setting over the desert. Somewhere out there, the Nexarian swarm was approaching, confident in their superior technology and their unbroken record of conquest. They had no way of knowing that their next target had spent the last 6 months turning itself into something unprecedented. A world where the future and the past were being weaponized together, where every defeat humanity had ever suffered had been turned into a lesson, and where 7 billion people had decided that adaptation wasn't just about survival, but about choosing how to survive. The real question wasn't whether humanity's plan would work. The real question was, what would the galaxy look like when a predator species finally met prey that had spent its entire history learning to fight back? Unexpected strengths. The first signs of the Nexarian arrival came not from advanced detection systems, but from a beekeeper in rural Montana. Deborah Hayes noticed her bees acting strangely, entire hives abandoning their colonies and flying in unusual patterns. Within hours, similar reports came in from around the globe. Nature itself was reacting to something humans couldn't yet detect. In the Unity Complex's command center, Dr. Sarah Chen watched as Dawn Singer's skin shifted to deep crimson. "They're here," the Aldari ambassador announced. "Earlier than we calculated." General Martinez immediately activated the Global Defense Network. "All stations, this is not a drill. Implementation Protocol Echo is now in effect." Across Earth, cities went dark. Power grids shut down in rolling sequences, manufacturing centers powered down, and digital networks fell silent. To any watching force, it would appear that humanity was trying to hide. They weren't hiding. They were setting the stage. The first wave of Nexarian ships entered the solar system like a swarm of metallic locusts, their biomechanical hulls gleaming in the sunlight. They passed Mars without slowing, their sensors detecting nothing of interest on the red planet. They didn't notice the quantum beacons hidden beneath the Martian soil, marking them for what was to come. "First wave approaching lunar orbit," a technician announced. "Numbers match Aldari intelligence, approximately 3,000 scout vessels." Sarah watched the tactical display, her heart pounding. Everything they'd planned, everything they'd prepared for, came down to this moment. Launch Operation Pandora. Across Earth's surface, what appeared to be random pieces of space debris suddenly activated. Thousands of simple mechanical satellites, deliberately designed to look like junk, oriented themselves toward the incoming Nexarian fleet. "They're scanning the satellites," Dawn Singer reported, her skin flickering with anxiety. "But they're not registering them as threats. The technology is too primitive." Martinez smiled grimly. "That's what we're counting on. Execute Phase 1. The satellites fired, not with energy weapons or advanced projectiles, but with clouds of what appeared to be ordinary metal shavings. The Nexarian ships passed through the clouds without concern, until the shavings began to interact with their biomechanical hulls. "My God," Dawn Singer whispered, her skin paling to near white. "The metal, it's not just damaging them. It's preventing them from adapting." Sarah nodded. "Simple iron filings, treated with the quantum disruption field. Their hulls can't process it because there's nothing to process, it's just dead metal interfering with their biological components." The Nexarian fleet's organized formation began to break apart as ships tried to deal with the spreading contamination. That's when humanity launched its second surprise. From hidden bases on the moon, waves of Ghost Brigade operators deployed in suits that were deliberately archaic in design, more like deep-sea diving suits than modern space suits. They carried weapons that would have looked at home in museums, except for the materials they were made from. "Ghost Brigade units engaging," Martinez reported. "Nexarian defensive systems are not registering them as threats. The suits are too simple to trigger their threat detection." The space around Earth's moon became a battlefield unlike anything in galactic history. Ghost Brigade operators used magnetically accelerated harpoons to breach Nexarian hulls, then boarded the ships using tactics that would have been familiar to pirates from Earth's age of sail. Inside the ships, they fought with hand-to-hand weapons that the Nexarians' advanced defenses never saw coming. "Second wave incoming," a technician called out. "They're adapting their approach pattern." "Good," Sarah said. "Activate the lunar mines." Across the lunar surface, simple pressure-triggered explosives detonated. They weren't meant to destroy the Nexarian ships, they just needed to throw up clouds of moon dust. The dust, treated with the same quantum disruption field as the iron filings, began to play havoc with the Nexarian sensor systems. "They're trying to adapt," Dawn Singer reported, her skin now showing patterns of amazement. "But every time they develop a countermeasure, they encounter a different type of attack. Advanced weapons from one direction, primitive ones from another. Their adaptation protocols they're starting to conflict with each other." Martinez watched as the tactical display showed more Nexarian ships falling into disarray. Launch the AI swarms. From Earth, thousands of drones took flight. Each one contained 2 AI systems, one quantum-based, one running on simple binary. They switched between systems randomly, making their attack patterns impossible for the Nexarians to predict or counter. The first battle for Earth lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Nexarian scout fleet was in ruins. Hundreds of their ships had been disabled by simple mechanical means, their crews overwhelmed by Ghost Brigade boarding parties. Others had fallen to the AI swarms, or had their systems corrupted by exposure to the quantum disruption fields. In the command center, Dawn Singer's skin had settled into a deep gold color that none of the humans had seen before. This is unprecedented. You didn't just defeat them. You confused them. Their entire tactical doctrine is based on analyzing and adapting to threats, but you gave them nothing coherent to adapt to. Sarah looked at the tactical display, where the remaining Nexarian ships were retreating in disarray. We learned something from studying your records of their previous conquests. The Nexarians don't just adapt physically, they adapt conceptually. Every civilization they've encountered has tried to beat them by developing better technology. So that's what they expect, and what they're prepared for. But we gave them Stone Age weapons alongside quantum physics, Martinez added. Primitive tactics mixed with advanced strategy. Individual warriors alongside AI swarms. There's no pattern to adapt to, no logical progression to analyze. We turned our own chaotic nature into a weapon. Dawn Singer moved closer to the display. They'll be back. With greater numbers. We're counting on it, Sarah replied. Everything we use today. Those were just our opening moves. We have hundreds of other plans ready, each one combining different levels of technology in ways that shouldn't work but do. Because that's what humanity does best, we break patterns. We try the impossible. We turn our weaknesses into strengths. As if to emphasize her point, a Ghost Brigade team chose that moment to report in. They had captured an intact Nexarian ship and were beginning to study its systems, not to copy them, but to understand how to confuse them more effectively. The battle for Earth was far from over. But humanity had done something no other species had managed in centuries of fighting the Nexarians. They had proven that the greatest adaptability doesn't come from having the most advanced technology, it comes from being willing to try anything, no matter how primitive or advanced, to survive. The predators had finally met prey that refused to play by their rules. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity decided to change the game entirely. The Hunter's turn. 3 months after the first battle for Earth, the captured Nexarian ship hung in high orbit, its biomechanical hull now covered in a patchwork of human modifications. The Ghost Brigade had nicknamed it Frankenstein, a fitting name for a vessel that represented humanity's first step from defender to hunter. Final system check complete, Sarah Chen announced from the makeshift bridge. The interior had been gutted and rebuilt using a combination of salvaged Nexarian technology and deliberately primitive human controls. Frankenstein is ready for its first real mission. General Martinez stood beside her, examining the hybrid control systems. Some stations used advanced quantum interfaces, while others relied on physical levers and manual controls. The beauty of it is that even we don't know exactly how it all works together. If we can't predict it, neither can they. Dawn Singer, who had become humanity's primary advisor in the war, moved through the bridge with her skin shifting between shades of blue and gold, uncertainty mixed with excitement. You're not just planning to survive anymore, are you? You're going to take the fight to them. We are, Sarah confirmed. But not alone. She gestured to the tactical display, where dozens of ships were appearing from jump points around Earth. Ships from species that had lost worlds to the Nexarians, who had heard about humanity's success and decided to join the fight. The coalition fleet was as diverse as the tactics that had won Earth's first battle. Some ships carried advanced energy weapons, others primitive but effective kinetic weapons. Every vessel had been modified with human-designed quantum disruption fields and hybrid control systems. First wave deployment in 5 minutes, Martinez announced. All ships, confirm battle readiness. The target was a Nexarian forward base, recently established in a nearby star system. Intelligence from their allies suggested it was being used to stage forces for a second attack on Earth. Humanity had decided not to wait for that attack. Sarah watched as the fleet moved into formation. The captured Nexarian ship would lead the assault, broadcasting signals that would hopefully confuse the base's defenses long enough for the first strike to land. Everything depended on maintaining the same principle that had worked in Earth's defense, being unpredictable, combining different levels of technology in ways that defied adaptation. Jump drives engaging, the navigation officer reported. The fleet vanished in a series of light flashes, emerging moments later in view of their target. The Nexarian base was massive, a twisted amalgamation of organic and mechanical components spread across an asteroid field. "They're scanning us," Dawn Singer reported, her skin rippling with tension. "Frankenstein's modifications are working, they're having trouble classifying us as a threat." "Launch Ghost Brigade boarding pods," Martinez ordered. "Follow up with the kinetic strike packages." The battle unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance of chaos. Ghost Brigade teams, using their signature combination of advanced materials and primitive tactics, breached the base's outer defenses. AI swarms followed, their unpredictable attack patterns creating gaps in the Nexarian response. Then came humanity's newest weapon, engineered viruses delivered by simple mechanical projectiles. The viruses weren't designed to kill, but to create confusion in the Nexarians' biological components, making it harder for them to coordinate their defenses. "Their adaptation protocols are activating," Sarah noted, watching the base's responses on her displays. "But they're still trying to analyze us as a purely technological threat. They haven't figured out that our real weapon is inconsistency itself." The battle raged for hours, spreading through the asteroid field. Ghost Brigade teams captured key sections of the base, using them to broadcast conflicting signals that further disrupted the Nexarians' coordination. Allied ships struck from multiple vectors, each using different combinations of weapons and tactics. "Look," Dawn Singer said suddenly, her skin pulsing with an intense purple glow. "The base's central core, it's trying to separate itself, to escape." "Not trying," Martinez corrected with a grim smile. "We're forcing it to. That core contains their tactical databases, their analysis of every species they've encountered. And now it's heading exactly where we want it." The core unit, a massive sphere of biomechanical tissue, detached from the base and began to move away from the battle. It headed straight into a field of what appeared to be debris, until the debris came alive, revealing itself as a swarm of simple mechanical drones carrying quantum disruption fields. "Containment field activated," Sarah announced. "The core can't jump away, can't adapt fast enough to break free. We've got it." The capture of a Nexarian tactical core was unprecedented. No species had ever managed it before, they'd always tried to destroy the Nexarians outright, not realizing that the real victory lay in understanding them. As the battle wound down and cleanup operations began, Dawn Singer approached Sarah and Martinez. "You know what this means. With access to their tactical databases, we can predict where they'll strike next. We can warn other worlds, teach them your methods." "More than that," Sarah replied. "We can study how they think, how they adapt. And then we can teach others how to be unpredictable in response. The Nexarians evolved to be perfect predators, but they evolved in a predictable universe. We're going to show the galaxy how to be unpredictable." Martinez nodded. "Today, we're not just survivors anymore. We're not even just fighters. We're teachers. We're going to teach the galaxy that the best defense against a perfect predator isn't perfect technology, it's perfect chaos." The captured core was brought aboard Frankenstein for transport back to Earth. Inside it lay not just tactical data, but proof of a fundamental truth, that humanity's greatest strength had never been in its technology or its weapons, but in its ability to defy expectations, to combine the primitive with the advanced, to turn apparent weaknesses into unexpected strengths. The Nexarians had spent millennia evolving to be the galaxy's perfect predators. But they were about to learn that true adaptation isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming impossible to predict. And humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly how that was done. Evolution's edge. The truth was hidden in plain sight within the captured Nexarian core. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent weeks decoding its biological data storage, each revelation more disturbing than the last. Now, in the depths of the Unity complex, she prepared to share what she'd discovered with humanity's leaders and allies. They're not just conquering worlds, she explained, projecting the decoded data for all to see. They're trying to force the evolution of the entire galaxy. The holographic display showed the true nature of the Nexarian consumption process. Each world they devoured wasn't just destroyed, it was analyzed, its unique characteristics added to their collective knowledge. Every species' biological and technological adaptations were absorbed and repurposed. They believe they're creating perfection, Dawn Singer added, her skin shifting to deep violet with understanding. Each world consumed brings them closer to their ideal of ultimate adaptation. General Martinez studied the data with growing concern. But why consume entire civilizations? Why not just study them? Because they're afraid, Sarah realized. Look at these patterns in their base code. They're not driven by hunger or conquest, they're driven by fear. Fear of stagnation, fear of becoming obsolete. They believe that if they don't constantly evolve, constantly absorb new adaptations, they'll die out. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Nexarians weren't just predators, they were prisoners of their own evolutionary drive, eternally consuming in a desperate attempt to perfect themselves. That's why our tactics worked, Martinez said. We weren't just confusing their adaptation protocols, we were challenging their entire worldview. They can't comprehend a species that deliberately uses less advanced technology alongside more advanced systems. Sarah nodded. They see evolution as a linear progression toward perfection. But humanity. She pulled up images from Earth's battles. We prove that evolution can go in any direction. Sometimes the best adaptation is to become simpler, not more complex. Dawn Singer's skin rippled with excitement. This changes everything. With this knowledge, we can dash. The emergency alert system cut her off. Global sensors were detecting massive quantum disturbances. The Nexarian main fleet had arrived, not just a battle group, but their entire civilization. They know what we've discovered, Sarah realized. They're not here to conquer Earth anymore. They're here to eliminate a threat to their entire evolutionary paradigm. The space around Earth filled with Nexarian ships, millions of them, their biomechanical hulls forming a sphere around the planet. Their message, when it came, was broadcast on all frequencies. You represent an evolutionary dead end. Your unpredictability is a flaw that must be eliminated. Surrender and be absorbed, or be eradicated. Martinez activated the Global Defense Network, but everyone knew Earth's defenses couldn't handle a fleet of this size. Then Sarah noticed something in the core's data that changed everything. Wait, she said, fingers flying across her console. Their fear of evolutionary stagnation, it's not just a driving force, it's a weakness. Their entire civilization is built on the assumption that complexity equals advancement. What if we showed them something so simple it breaks that assumption? She pulled up the schematics for the quantum disruption field, humanity's first successful anti-Nexarian weapon. We've been using this as a weapon, but what if we used it as a message instead? Working frantically, Sarah reprogrammed the field generators. Instead of disrupting Nexarian biology, they would now broadcast a simple pattern, the mathematical sequence of human DNA, but stripped down to its most basic components. Launch the modified field, she ordered. Full global coverage. The effect was immediate and stunning. The Nexarian fleet froze in space as the pattern reached them. Their sensors, designed to detect and analyze complex evolutionary patterns, were confronted with something that defied their fundamental assumptions, a species that had achieved space flight and quantum physics while maintaining the same basic genetic structure it had possessed for millennia. "They're trying to process it," Dawn Singer reported, her skin shifting through colors rapidly. "Their entire collective consciousness is attempting to understand how a primitive, genetic pattern could produce advanced technology." The Nexarian ships began to move erratically, their formations breaking down. Some started to retreat, while others appeared to be fighting among themselves. The pattern was forcing them to confront a possibility their entire civilization had been built to deny. That true adaptation wasn't about becoming more complex, but about becoming what you needed to be, even if that meant becoming simpler. "Send the second message," Sarah commanded. This one contained something even more revolutionary, an offer. Earth would share its understanding of adaptive unpredictability with the Nexarians, showing them that they didn't need to consume worlds to evolve. They could learn to change without destroying, to adapt without absorbing. Hours passed as the Nexarian fleet remained in disarray. Then, finally, a response came. Not from their military command, but from deeper within their collective consciousness, the part of them that still remembered what it meant to evolve naturally, to change through choice rather than consumption. "We understand," the message read. "We have been pursuing a false path. Your species teaches a different way." The fleet began to withdraw, not in defeat, but in transformation. The Nexarians hadn't been conquered by superior weapons or technology. They had been changed by an idea, the idea that true evolution wasn't about becoming more complex or more powerful, but about becoming what you chose to be. In the years that followed, humanity became not just defenders of Earth, but teachers to the galaxy. They showed other species that survival didn't depend on having the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons. It depended on being able to adapt in unexpected ways, on being willing to combine the primitive with the advanced, on understanding that sometimes the best way forward was to step backward. The Nexarians themselves began to change, learning from humanity's example. They turned their consumption-driven evolution into a more subtle art, studying and learning from other species without destroying them. Their fear of stagnation was replaced by a fascination with diversity. And Earth? Earth became known throughout the galaxy not as the world that defeated the Nexarians, but as the world that showed the galaxy a fundamental truth, that the most powerful force in evolution wasn't the drive toward complexity, but the freedom to choose your own path. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their demonstration that true strength lies not in becoming perfect, but in remaining adaptable, even if that adaptation meant becoming something no one, not even yourself, expected you to be.